Hello everybody and welcome back to All the Mods 10. In the previous episode, we created a few additional bees, such as the Diamond Bee and of course the Netherite Bee, which allowed us to finally upgrade our Ars Nouveau robes into the All the Modium version. So make sure to check out that previous video. I'll also add a card that links to the playlist for this mod pack. So in between episodes, I've been pretty busy. I probably spent a good couple of hours reworking how our bees sort of work. So if I turn around here, you might notice that all of the logistical pipes that were here are completely gone now. The drawers on top are still hosting the items, but you'll notice that most of them are empty still. And that's actually because I've completely taken over the second floor and I've basically turned it into our processing center for all of our combs. I felt our previous solution was just not good enough in order to expand in the future. So we're now running 6 powered centrifuges instead of 5. We have it basically all hooked up with our applied energistic system. Basically, it just deposits the combs into this iron barrel here with an export bus. It gets pulled out into the powered centrifuges, then they come out through the back and into this, which brings it into our system. And basically what's controlling everything is this storage controller here, as well as a few modular routers. Now, we haven't actually talked about modular routers before, but it's a very nifty mod. So if I go ahead and right click it, by the way, this is camouflaged. Usually it looks like this. So what this does is it's pretty complicated. Basically, each of these puller modules is linked up to one of the hives below, and it's just pulling all of the items into here. It pulls them inside of the modular router, and then this cylinder module here at the end actually pushes it into the storage controller. This storage controller is linked up to all of the drawers that are on top of each of the hives, so it's basically using them as a storage system still, but now it's fully integrated with our AE system because we've actually added a storage bus to the controller. So all of our items from here are accessible, and none of them actually end up over in our drives or any of our other storage drawers that already exist, which saves us a ton of room already. Also, I've added a few of these upgrade productivity alphas to each of the powered centrifuges. By the way, if you don't know, these basically just increase your output by 120%, and these use the draconic chunks, and you get these from draconic dust, which is basically, it just comes from the draconic bees that we set up in the previous episode. So this will actually increase the number of items that we get from each of the combs. Additionally, I also have a few extra frame drawers up here. These are for the extra items that some of these nests produce, like the ender bee that produces chorus fruit and chorus flowers. We also have honey. We need honey blocks for a few different sort of resources in productive bees, such as the cages and of course the upgrade productivity alpha. But yeah, that's pretty much this system solved a little bit. It should be a little more expandable in the future, and I think overall it just looks a little bit nicer. I would like to clean this room up first a little bit though, but I'll probably do that some other time. So also in between episodes, I finally got started on making a heart necklace. So we have that here, a heart amulet. And basically what this does is gives us extra hearts. So we fill them with these red heart canisters and these yellow heart canisters. Eventually we'll get green and blue as well. And each heart canister gives you an additional heart. So I have 18 additional hearts. And these heart canisters are pretty simple to make. We just need relic apples, which are just emerald and diamond. We need canisters, which I think are just iron. These miniature red hearts, which you get from mob drops. And since we have a mob farm, we actually have quite a few of these. And then we need witherbone, which I've gotten plenty of while fighting withers. And then the yellow heart canisters actually drop from the various boss mobs, such as the Wither or the Wild and Chimera. So I think the first thing that I want to do today is actually upgrade our spellbook. I meant to do that in the previous episode, but I completely forgot about it. So to get this, we are going to need to basically just put it in the smithing table, same as all of the other items. There we go. There is our Allthemodium spellbook. This is technically capable of casting tier 4 glyphs. However, there are no tier 4 glyphs. Instead, what this does is it allows you to add additional glyphs inside of a spell. So if we take our Mold Earth spell, for example, right now we can only have, by default, we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 slots. But if we click this little page over button in the bottom right, you'll notice that we have 2 additional slots that we can use. So this is a Mold Earth spell with like 20 amplifies. 10 to be exact, actually. But where it really comes in handy is actually with AoE. We can make an absolutely massive AoE spell. And I think I actually want to try this out in a new area that we unlocked when we mined up Allthemodium. So what I'm going to craft now is the teleport pad. We just need 4 Allthemodium nuggets and an ender pearl. And we can craft the teleport pad. So the teleport pad basically unlocks a few new dimensions. And I think I just want to place this in this back corner for now. Kind of a random place for it. So depending on which dimension that you actually place this inside of, it will take you to a completely different dimension. So as you can see at the top there, when we place it in the overworld, it will actually teleport us to the mining dimension. So I'll go ahead and shift right click. There we go. And we end up in a completely flat world. You might also notice that we are extremely high up, and that's because all the way down is a ton of resources. So to test out our new spell, I am going to go a little ways away. Actually, I'm going to place a waystone down first, just in case I get lost. This is the mining dim. Here we go. And now I'll use our Mold Earth spell. And this was with 10 AoE. Yeah, that's crazy. And I believe we could actually amplify the AoE if I remember correctly. So we could make this very, very big. The only problem is that this spell costs a ton of mana now. But if I just sort of take our regular pickaxe and start mining down, you should probably never mine down, but I don't think there's any lava in this dimension. You'll notice that we're getting a lot of the overworld ores. And the further down we go, and it goes really, really deep, we should eventually get to Deep Slate. Here we are, we're in Deep Slate now. And below the Deep Slate is actually the Nether level, surprisingly enough. So yeah, if we keep going down, we actually eventually dig into hell itself. But we can actually keep going even further beyond that. Below the Nether is actually the end. So we'll find all of the end ores down here, although there's not as many end ores as you would think. And I'm pretty sure that we can't even get the end game ores from here. Maybe we can, but with a smaller chance. So to take advantage of this new dimension, I want to craft a builder. This is from the RF Tools mod, and it is probably one of the most overpowered items in the game, which is probably why they changed the recipe to require Allthemodium nuggets now. By the way, I was going to craft this a few episodes ago, but then I realized it required Allthemodium, so unfortunately I couldn't. So here we have the builder. The builder is going to require a few things. It's going to require power. It will need an inventory for items to go to, and it's also going to need a shape card. The shape card basically just defines the shape of what will be mined out. And I should probably talk about what the builder actually does. It's basically capable of building structures and tearing them down as well. It can mine out a pretty large area. So to craft the shape card, we're just going to need some bricks and paper. We have everything pretty much automated already for that. Here we go. And I believe we're going to want this to be the shape card quarry. So that'll just require a diamond pickaxe and a shovel. So there we go. And I might as well also upgrade it into a fortune quarry, which is just going to require some dimensional shards, which can be picked up in the nether and the end, I believe, a gas tier, and some other bits as well. And I do think that I want to actually surround this with glass to make it a clearing fortune quarry. I think the regular one will just replace all the blocks with dirt, if I'm not mistaken. But if we turn it into the clearing one, it'll actually clear it out and not leave any blocks behind. I think that'll be useful for actually determining where we've already mined before. So I think for power, we're just going to use a spirited end gate. And storage is going to be a little bit more tricky because this is in a completely different dimension. The wireless connectors that we've been using actually won't connect across dimensions, so we're probably going to need to come up with a different solution. And I think the least complicated way of doing that is probably just going to be with crafting a couple of ender chests. Ender chests actually have a shared inventory among them, so if I place both of these down and I put, say, our end gates inside of this left chest, it's also inside of this right chest. It works basically the same as the default ender chests. The difference though is that we can actually basically change the combination on these. So now if it's brown, green, and lime green, if I place the items inside of this one, they're no longer showing up in this one. But if I then dye this the same colors, it's actually inside of this one now. So this will be extremely useful for transferring our items back to the overworld from the mining dimension. So now back here in the mining dimension, I'm going to place the builder down somewhere. I'm thinking, I guess on the edge of the hole that we made is kind of a good place for it. So what we do now, I always forget exactly how this works. Right, you shift right click onto your builder, and then you find your first corner. We're going to place the first corner all the way down at the bottom of the hole that we made. All the way down. We're just going to go all the way to bedrock here. And I guess this corner will do. And now for the second corner. So I think that corner over there was the corner that I chose. I think right about here. And I want to put one block up, just in case it decides not to go all the way up. So now we can just right click this into our builder. And in order to show the area that we selected, we click on support/preview mode. And that'll show us exactly the area that we chose. It's pretty decent, at least for demonstration purposes. So we'll disable that. And now I'll get our ender chest on top there. And I'll place an ender gate on the side. And in order to start it back up, all we need to do is click this button here, I believe. There we go. So it is now digging extremely quickly. Strangely, it's only choosing that area there to start digging. I'm not sure exactly why I did that, but I'm assuming it stopped because our ender chest is already full. So back in the overworld, we can actually choose a place for our input chest to go. I'm thinking in this room is probably the best place for it. So all we need to do is put an import bus on the top there, and it will begin to pull items inside of it. It'll need some acceleration cards though. And you might also notice that no items are coming back inside of the chest. And that's because this is not actually chunk loaded. I probably should have chosen a better area to put this, but for now we'll just chunk load this entire area here. Unfortunately, we're at max force loads. That should be fine though. I believe only the builder needs to be chunk loaded. And if for whatever reason this ever stops, I think all you need to do is just click that button again and it should return. So after reconfiguring things and sort of troubleshooting for a little while, I don't know why I always struggle with the RF Tools builder, but it is working now. It says it doesn't have enough power, but we have 2 Ender Gates spirited on it, each transferring 200k per tick. It's definitely got enough power. But if we look down into the hole, it should be mining away now. By the way, I had a weird issue with it where it was just clearing out the stone and everything else around it. It does kind of leave a cool impression though, with all of the ores kind of sticking out. This is a pretty good visualization of sort of the ore spread inside of the mining dimension. It's definitely a lot more dense than in the overworld. By the way, I am curious to see how our mechanism setup is holding up and operating while all of these ores are coming in. Surprisingly, doing pretty well. Um, this transfer could probably be a little bit faster though. I'm wondering if we're still just waiting on oxygen. And I think I'm just wanting to look into the thermal evaporation plant, I think it was called. Basically what we do is inject any kind of water, and that will produce brine, and then brine can be run through the electrolytic separator, and that will produce both sodium and chlorine. And then we use a chemical infuser to combine our hydrogen and chlorine. We're already producing hydrogen from our electrolytic separator. So with the hydrogen chlorine, we place that inside of a chemical injection chamber, and that will process our ores even further down. So we're going to need to make 33 thermal evaporation blocks, which are just made with, looks like steel and bronze, as well as a superheating element. That doesn't look too bad. And of course, this is all the mods 10, so obviously I'm going to make a crafting pattern for it. Everything seems pretty simple. And we'll need a good way to automate bronze as well, which is just copper and tin. I think I already have a crusher set up, so I should be able to automate this. Ah, thank you, past me. Here we go. So we should have everything that we need now. So now we just need to make a bronze pattern with a smelting recipe, of course. And we'll probably just have that run through our netherite furnace. Okay, so I need one thermal evaporation controller. That shouldn't be too bad. Then we're going to need 33 evaporation blocks. Surprisingly, we have everything that we need. And then we needed 2 of the evaporation valves. Ah, dang it. I just saw that OBS messed up my my recording. So basically I built the thermal evaporation block, or chamber I should say. So we have all of that set up where we have brine being pulled out of the side there. We have our AE system actually exporting water from it. We just have an export bus set up with exporting water, and I have a sink set up somewhere with water set up as a storage bus. And that's just pulling water into the thermal evaporation block, and that's being turned into brine. And the brine's being set into the electrolytic separator. And I've just been trying to figure out how the chemical infuser works. And I think we're actually going to need gas pipes for this, or pressurized tubes. Let's see if that'll actually connect. Ah, okay. So that's how we actually transport gases. That's good to know. So we can pull the hydrogen from our other electrolytic separator and pull that into the chemical infuser. And when we have chlorine and hydrogen mixed together, we get hydrogen chloride. And the hydrogen chloride is used in the chemical injection chamber. And I actually haven't set up the recipes for the reinforced alloy or the elite control circuits quite yet. So I'm just working on that right now. These are just infused alloy with diamond. I think this is only with enriched diamond in the metallurgic infuser. And I could just set up a pattern in the enrichment chamber for 1 diamond for 1 enriched diamond, just like that. And there are 2 different recipes for the elite control circuits. One that's just a regular crafting recipe, which requires 2 reinforced alloy. Alternatively, what we can do is use the metallurgic infuser. And I think that's a little bit cheaper as far as I know. So we'll go with this recipe. And I think I want a crafting card on this export bus specifically. That way it can actually request the system to make enriched diamond whenever it runs out. Alright, and that's everything that we needed for the chemical injection chamber. So I think probably the best way to implement this into our system is just to move this over, possibly? So the shards that it produces actually get sent into the purification chamber, which is the purifying factory here. So I do think that it makes the most sense placing it right here. So I'll just have to reconfigure things just a little bit. By the way, a good tip for when you're building with pipes and that kind of thing. Obviously, you're too big to fit in a 1x1 hole, but if you use a personal shrinking device, you can just right-click and set it to, say, 0.5 blocks, and then if you shift right-click, you can actually go right under the block, and it makes digging out pipe holes so much easier. Alright, and I've spent a little bit of time now sort of working on and configuring our little factory here. I decided to fully integrate it into our applied energistics system. So that means that we're actually importing chemicals directly into the AE system. And the way you do that, by the way, is actually crafting a chemical storage cell, which pretty much is the same as a regular storage cell. You just need a storage component and the cell housing, which isn't really too bad at all. So I just quickly filtered out our AE system here to show all of the chemicals that we're currently storing and producing in the system. So the thermal evaporation chamber is producing brine. That doesn't go into the system, it just goes directly into this electrolytic separator. The electrolytic separator produces chlorine and sodium, which we're storing both of. Sodium really isn't used for anything right now. Later on, we'll be using it for fission reactors, though. So I'm just storing a little bit now so that we have some to work with later on. So like I said, it's all being imported into the system. Then the next step, of course, is the chemical infuser. This is combining our chlorine and hydrogen. And remember, hydrogen gets created in the electrolytic separator when you put water inside of here. This is where we also get our oxygen. And I did make a nice little setup for this as well. It's a little bit annoying that you can't output both chemicals from the electrolytic separator from the same side. So yeah, you have to use two import buses, unfortunately. But that is producing the hydrogen that we need to make our hydrogen chloride. And the hydrogen chloride gets sent directly over to the advanced injecting factory, which by the way, I went through and upgraded all of our machines into the advanced tier, just so that they can have a few more slots to actually process ores through. Right now we're producing copper and it's getting really backed up even with full upgrades. So with this export bus here, by the way, we are exporting both hydrogen chloride and the raw ores that we need. It's kind of cool that you can do it in one sort of interface. You can actually also do energy with these as well. I would like to get into that eventually, but right now our system is okay. It's not really keeping up with all of this though. If we take a look over here, yeah, it's draining pretty quickly. Once we finish processing our ores, it should be okay though. And I also have this extra tank here filled with hydrogen chloride. For some reason, the acceleration cards are pretty slow when it comes to fluids and chemicals. So just having this little buffer just helps make things go a little more smoothly. And then we're also exporting the oxygen that we're creating over here in the electrolytic separators, and we're just putting it directly into the advanced purifying factory. And then from here, of course, everything else is the same. All of the ores just keep going through and get crushed down eventually into dust and then turned into ingots. And by the way, speaking of power, this machine can actually consume a lot. When I had full upgrade cards on here of the speed upgrades, it was using almost 1,000,000 FE per tick. Making chemicals definitely consumes a lot of power. Oh, and also, so to get more brine out of the thermal evaporation chamber, what you can do is actually use a resistive heater. I got this from a quest, so I don't know how difficult it is to craft. I should look it up really quick. Yeah, it's really not too bad to craft. But basically this just produces heat to the adjacent block to it, and you can actually manually set how much power that you want it to consume. So for example, if I wanted it to use 100,000 FE per tick, it'll just do that, and we should be getting a ton of brine now. This might end up getting full. Surprisingly, it's keeping up. The temperature, by the way, does increase slowly, and a higher temperature just produces more of the brine. But we definitely don't want this thing consuming that much power, especially given our current power situation. Which, speaking of, it might be a good time to upgrade our reactor. So the next tier for the reactor is going to be Nitro. Currently we have Spirited tier. Unfortunately though, to get Nitro, we're going to need more Nether Stars. And so I think today would probably be a pretty good day to get into the Hostile Neural Networks mod. This mod is pretty cool in that it basically allows you to generate the drops from a mob without having to deal with a sort of a laggy mob farm or having to deal with entities. Now, over the past few episodes, we have been working on some data models here. So we've killed the Wither 3 times. I think I've killed it a few more times than that. I just didn't have the deep learner on me at the time, unfortunately. It is faulty tier though, which I don't believe will actually allow us to produce anything. So we're going to have to kill the Wither a few more times. And to help us get the Wither skeleton skulls a little bit more quickly, we do have the Wither skeleton data model, which I've already gotten up to the advanced tier. So I think that we'll be using this as our demonstration. So I'm back here in our mob farm, and this is probably going to be a decent place to actually get started with this. Eventually I would like its own area for it, but right now I just kind of want to show off how this works. So we're going to need to craft a few things first. We're going to need the simulation chamber, as well as a loot fabricator. This does require a netherite ingot. Fortunately, we just set up automatic netherite in the previous episode. So the simulation chamber is where we're actually going to place our data model. We also need prediction matrices, which I've actually got a few of before, but they're also extremely easy to craft. So you just place these inside, and now we give it power, and that should begin to run the simulation. So when it runs the simulation, eventually you'll get generalized nether prediction. These are the more common item that will appear from the simulation. These are used to craft a few different things. The ender prediction specifically lets you craft like things like blaze powder, gas tiers, even gold ingots. But occasionally you will get these wither skeleton predictions. These are specific to the mod that you're actually creating. And when you put these inside of the loot fabricator, which also needs power by the way, you can actually select which item that you want it to produce. For example, we could just get wither skull fragments, but I specifically want wither skeleton skulls. I think it's just a little bit easier, and you literally get 3 from each prediction. Yeah, not bad. That's 2 nether stars right there. And to make my job just a little bit easier, I'm going to be using tinted glass, which is tough enough to withstand withers. So we're going to need to build a little chamber here. Oh, and it escaped. It escaped. That's not good. By the way, the additional spell power of the all the modium gear is actually really good. I'm almost two-shotting the wither now. Basic wither data model now. Now this will actually allow us to produce nether stars. So now we can put the wither data model inside of our simulation chamber with some prediction matrices. And by the way, this does have a pretty hefty simulation cost of 2,560 FE per tick. So now, of course, it is time to fully integrate it into our ME system. And we completely hit a tipping point where our power system completely shut off. So I had to run around and basically disconnect a few things, and it's recovering a little bit. What I think I want to do though is get a new reactor. So I'm not just going to upgrade this one, I actually want to implement a second one. I feel like we're at the point in this pack where we're going to need a ton of power anyway, so having 2 of these power reactors is a pretty decent start. So hopefully everything's still connected together, that we can still actually produce a reactor. It's going to take a lot of power. I think we're still recovering though, so that's a good thing. The energizing orb is still working, and I think that's all that we really need for this. By the way, I never really talked about these thermo generators after I built them. They are still implemented in our system. The only difference is that I replaced the lava below them with blocks of blazing crystal, and these just allow them to produce 420 Fe per tick each, instead of the default, which was like 100 something. So I'll set up a pattern recipe for the prediction matrices, and I'll put a crafting card inside of that. That way the system can automatically craft prediction matrices whenever they need them. And so I think a system like this will probably work the best just for a single entity at a time. Oh, and it looks like our reactors are done. So yeah, basically what I have here is an export bus with the prediction matrix inside. This has a crafting card as well, so it should be able to request more of them whenever it needs them. The generalized predictions end up in this barrel here, which just get imported back into the system. The wither predictions end up in here, they get turned into nether stars, and then they get imported back into the system. Nice. So now that our reactors are done, I think I actually want to upgrade these into the next tier immediately. So let's see if we can get 36 of these. And as far as I can tell, it's just going to be using the reactors we just made, which is exactly what we want. And it really shouldn't take too long. And I should probably replace this recipe with the full block version instead. It might be a little bit faster. All right, and here are our 36 nitro tier reactors. So what I want to do with this is basically kind of slide this one over. First off, I want to get this one upgraded to nitro as well, but I don't know if I have the nether stars for it. But yeah, I'm just going to have these kind of sit side by side and share resources. So we won't have power for a little while, hopefully not too long. And I really like the guides for this and how it just builds itself. That part always gets me. Nice, here we go. A nitro tier reactor. Awesome. And surprisingly, we do have everything that we need to upgrade these other ones as well. So I think I'm going to do that. I think first, though, I actually want to get the blaze rods sorted and upgraded, because we can actually use a blaze rod block in here instead. So we'll have that auto crafted. And then we can turn that into a block of blazing crystal like that. And then just in case we need blazing crystals by themselves as well, we'll get an auto crafting recipe for that. All right, so I'll get that started. And now I just want to get this one hooked up. And I think I just want this to automatically export the uraninite directly into the reactor instead of into a buffer chest. And I was also looking into the sort of different coolants that we can use for the reactor. I think the best one is dry ice still. This is actually crafted by placing blue ice inside of the energizing orb. Dry ice we can get from packed ice, and then packed ice is just regular ice. And we can actually get ice from bees, so I might actually make it a frosty bee. Let's see how bad that is. A sweat bee with... Oh, that's super easy. I might make a few bees real quick. If I return to the ice spikes biome where I already have this snow nest, I can just spam some treats on this, and that should speed it up quite quickly. Oh, and I think we ran out of power because my terminal is empty right now. Also, this sweat bee just does not want to leave this nest. And yep, it definitely looks like we're out of power now. And I think it's just because we have that weird bug where for some reason you can't put the gate directly on the reactor. It just doesn't pull out for some reason. I'm not sure why. I'm sure I'm probably messing something up, but yeah, everything should be working now. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Okay, these are still scheduled. I don't know if it'll keep going or not. All right, but it does look like our reactor is done now, so as soon as I clear that out, I should be able to place it down like that. And this one will also self-build. And we should now be doubling our power output, By the way, the nitro tier reactor will generate 180,000-ish per tick, about 200k maybe. And now we have both reactors finally set up. By the way, I don't know why this is kind of a weird interaction, but when you have two reactors right next to each other, for some reason these elite mechanical pipes just won't connect to both for some reason. I don't know why, I just added another sink off to the side. So just as a comparison with the dry ice, the one with dry ice inside of it is currently generating 266,000 FE per tick, whereas the one with just water is generating 184,000 FE per tick. Another thing that we can use to boost our reactors is carbon, which I believe we can just put coal inside of here, and redstone. Carbon will improve our efficiency, whereas redstone will improve our fuel consumption. We have both of those with the power of bees, so we really shouldn't worry about these too much. Let's see if that automatically inputs. It looks like the coal is going inside. I don't know about the redstone though. So it does look like we're generating almost 500,000 FE per tick. At least on the reactor with dry ice, coal, redstone, and water. On the other one, we only have water, and we're only generating 184,000 FE per tick. And this one is operating at about 700 degrees Celsius, whereas this one is only at 30 degrees Celsius. So now I just want to convert these sweat bees with some snow blocks into frosty bees. And it looks like they're no longer hostile, which is nice. So I've set up our frosty bees, and I've set up a few recipes for our ice, so it can now automatically craft dry ice. And I just have a few of these crafting cards inside of the export buses, so if it needs any of these materials and it can craft it, they will request it. Unfortunately though, that's all the time that we're going to have for today. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll catch you next time. Peace.